Hello and welcome to another episode of Feeding Fatty. This is Roy.
Terry.
So, this podcast is chronicling my journey, and Terry is my helper. So, trying to lose some weight, get in better shape, just all around wellness. And anyway, also we bring you guests, professionals in different fields from time to time. And today is no different. We have an awesome guest with us, and I'm going to let Terry introduce him.
Yes, we are delighted to have Steve Marshall. He is a wellness coach, author, and inspirational speaker. In October of 2018, DB birthed Love's Pursuit out of emotional hardship, love, forgiveness, and spiritual enlightenment. In a robust effort to impact lives across the world, he has dedicated his heart, experiences, time, gift, talents, and more importantly, his voice to uplift others, community advocacy, and support. In addition, he became an even before entering his doctoral program in social work, he devoted himself wholeheartedly toward the betterment of others in terms of self-confidence, attitude towards life, and overall wellness. His work with numerous charitable organizations, including the American Association of Kidney Patients, Big Brothers Big Sisters Program, and AAPC Patient-Centered Research Institute Dissemination Award on peer-to-peer mentorship, as well as other community-focused pursuits. We saw him develop friendship with people from all backgrounds. His passion continued to grow, fueling his motivational speaking pursuit, advocating for noble causes while capturing the hearts of thousands in the urban community on his wellness radio show at webruradio.com. Today, that passion is stronger than ever. His honest devotion to humanity sits at the core of Love's Pursuit and continues to change and positively impact lives globally. DB has a Doctor of Social Work, a master's degree in social work, a bachelor's degree in social work, associate's degree in early childhood education and leadership. DB, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Well, we need some of your motivational speaking today. I was just telling her, I said, we need to see if we can get a pizza delivery man over here. So we need to talk about some healthy eating. Yeah.
Yeah, the cupboard's dry.
Well, thanks for taking time out of your day to be with us. It's awesome to have you. And so kind of tell us a little bit about what led you here. How did you get here? And, yes.
Yeah. So how did I get here? I can honestly say I got here because of love, right? So my book is entitled, I just written a book, and my book is entitled Love Pursuit Journey to Wellness. And so when I start going through things and start dissecting different events that took place in my life, and also just trying to learn who I was and who I was becoming, I want to say the theme that kept coming out for me was like loving me, myself, loving who I was, because it's not always to love who you were. Sometimes it's not easy to love who we are right now, because there's some things that we want to change about ourselves. And so it also encompasses, loving God, loving my mom, loving my family. And so the theme love was just consistent. And so when I went through a lot of hardship in my life, it brought me back to love. And what does that mean for me?
It's so important. It's not only, that self-love component. We have to love ourselves before we can love anybody else. And I think that gets back to, we have to be happy with us. We can't expect other things. And I think, people like myself, we eat for a variety of reasons, but, it's all, typically it's all emotional. So we need to, we talk a lot about that. We need to give ourselves a break. And I've got another show that's more on business, and we talk about a lot there about how hard we are. And instead, like, if we have 10 things on our to-do list today and we get 7 done, we can spend our time beating ourselves up over not getting 3 things done versus celebrating those 7 that we did, that progress that we are making. And I think most people in life, we're the hardest upon ourselves.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And and some of it is social conditioning, right? And so I think we were almost taught that. And so we have to come back to the basics, and we have to understand that I like to use control, alternate, delete, control, alternate, delete. That needs to be a part of what we're doing every day, because that negative thought will come up in our minds. And once you have that negative thought, it causes you to feel some kind of weight. And it goes back to
Right.
what you were saying, and you create this behavior. You're emotionally eating. Now you have this behavior. So we have to, hit the control, alt, and
Yeah.
delete, and reboot. It's, start all over again.
Yeah, and what are some techniques that you use? Because that, I think that's a key also, that, at night when you go to bed, we need to learn, and don't want to dismiss the learning component of, when we do something, you
Mhm.
stick your hand on the hot burner, you get burned, you learn not to stick your hand back down there. But for all everything else, we need to hit that control alt delete every night and
Mhm.
start the next day fresh and ready to get out and do good, not only for ourselves, but for the world
Mhm.
in general. So, what, do you have any tricks or techniques that you kind of help you to refresh and start over?
Yes, one of the things that I do is meditate, right? And
Okay.
so meditation comes in different forms, and I had to learn this the hard way. I went through, practicing Buddhism, and I mean praying and chanting. And when it really comes down to the nitty-gritty, they all pretty much is the same thing. So you have to find out what works for you. So I thought meditating was just really just kind of closing your eyes and
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah.
worked for some people, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And so I had to find a way to meditate in which I thought it would be beneficial for me. And so when I meditate, I just say an affirmation. So I say I love myself, and I repeat it several times. Research shows that if you continue to repeat things at least a minimum of 3 times or more, it then becomes a part of you eventually.
Yeah. And if you notice how true that is, if you notice, there's a guy on TV, car commercials, phone number,
Mhm.
call 800
Yeah.
whatever, call 800, call 800 3 times, because that's what really resonates with people. So I think
Mhm.
that's awesome advice to affirm with ourselves 3 times
Yeah.
what we want to get that message. And,
Mhm.
it's interesting because my priest, he's such an awesome guy, but I get to talk to him every now and then. And that's one thing we talked about is those negative thoughts. And I like what he said, that our mind is a grinder, but we get to choose, and it grinds 24/7, but we get to choose what it grinds. And so I
Yeah.
think that, if we're feeding us that positive affirmation, it's like building that muscle memory too.
Yeah.
I think we will become that more than that negative. Hey, you know what? I could have done better. Should have done. Oh, you really messed up. And then all of a sudden, you become a product of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with that.
So
Yeah,
how?
I
Oh,
was gonna ask, so how can we stay on the positive part of that and get away from negative thoughts?
The best thing that I try to encourage and motivate people is, one, you have to understand that life in itself is a process, right? And so you have to pace your strides, pace that journey, and
Mhm.
don't set goals that you know you can achieve. And when you are attempting to change a behavior, you have to understand that it takes time. And so I give a prime example. I was writing this book. I work out. I used to work out faithfully. And so I literally started writing my books roughly about September. I just went back to the gym. And so over the past few months, guess what happened? I kind of gained some fat around my
Yeah,
stomach.
yeah,
So now the stubborn fat is there. And so for me to walk into the gym thinking that I am going to lose the fat around my stomach in a matter of months is probably going to be little to none, because it's
yeah,
easier to gain and it's harder to lose once it's there.
Yeah,
So I have to understand and set realistic goals in which I want to make sure I get back to where I was when I started, before I started writing.
yeah,
realistic, smaller
Mhm.
goals.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the big picture, but chip
Yeah.
away at it a little at a time. Yeah, that's good.
yeah. And the other thing I think too is I'll speak for me. Sometimes I get frustrated with not picking up something new or not figuring it out. But think also too, as we learn in that journey, is that we weren't born knowing everything, and
Mhm.
some people may have better skills than we do at certain things, but it's because they've done that repetitively. So
Exactly.
we need to, kind of find that piece that things take time. I
Mhm.
think that is a drawback of the, I'll say you kids, the younger generation, and the instant gratification. And I'm one, I've lost my patience. And I think because, we're so used to Google, back in the day when you had to
Mhm.
walk across the room to get an encyclopedia to look something up, you know, or go to, heaven forbid, you might have to get on the bus and go down to the public library to
I
look up a
know.
book. But, you could ask yourself a question and it may be days or weeks before you could answer. Where now, man, we can Google it and get anyway. The point is, I think that we've become so conditioned to instant gratification that, trying to work some patience in somewhere, it's difficult.
Yeah. I think it all started with drive-throughs, we think every place should have a drive-through, no matter what it is, what the service is, whatever.
Right, exactly. Uh-oh, we might have lost.
Um,
We'll give him just a second and see if he'll pop back up, but I'm afraid we might have lost EB. Oh, no. Well, we'll just keep talking. How about that?
Okay.
We'll give him a chance to pop back up, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just, the other thing I was going to talk about too a little bit is social media has, it only shows usually the best of other people, where, you know, there's other things going on. Sometimes that's even fake, that everybody's life is not as perfect as it may appear on social media. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I figured for sure you were bringing me up when we talked about having.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we were just talking about patience. I'm not sure how much of that you heard, but we were just saying that, we've all grown thin of patience, but we have to be patient with ourselves for sure.
Yeah, patient. I used to make fun of, the elderly. I ain't gonna say elderly because I might get stabbed. So I can remember the older generation saying certain phrases, like patience is a virtue. And it didn't necessarily make sense to me because I didn't appreciate patience when I was younger. And
Right,
ever since I hit like 40, patience has become a huge, huge part of my life.
right.
Oh, just
Yeah.
wait. Youth is wasted on the young. I remember that.
Yeah. Mhm.
So what made you decide to write this book? Was there a specific,
Incident.
something in life that happened, or just some things that had been on your mind you just wanted to get out finally?
Well, believe it or not, people have always told me that I should write a book based on just my life and my upbringing. I faced a lot of different obstacles, and to me, they weren't obstacles until I started hanging around with other people. So, in short, we were poor. Okay, and
Yeah.
so in the Black community, sometimes we have poor and we have po. And so po is poorer than poor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so with that said, we had the powdered milk, the welfare cheese. The food stamps. I don't know if you all remember, but the food stamps used to actually be paper, like real
Yes.
paper with different colors.
Yes.
And so with that said, I went through a number of things. And the thing that really, really took me there was the divorce. So I got divorced. Maybe it's been 6 years now, and we were married for 10 years. And me personally, I really don't believe in divorce. I feel like, look, if we love each other, if there is an iota of love, I'm going
Right.
to work it. I'm going
Right.
to figure out what we can do. Unfortunately, that's my value, and I had to understand that's not everyone else's value. And so,
Right.
with that said, it really hit h- hard. And in addition to that, there was some other things that was going on. I was dealing with racism. I was dealing with discrimination. I was dealing with. I remember going to work one day, and a car came out of nowhere, and I had to avoid from the car hitting me, and my car ended up in a ditch, and they literally had to get a tow truck and pull me and my car out of this ditch.
Oh,
It was
wow.
just so much that was going on. And so at that particular time, I said, you know what? I just shut down and I went into a depression for a little over 3 months. And so I took FMLA and took 12 weeks off, and I didn't go to work. And here's the thing, I had to make sure I did the work, because when I went back to work, although I wasn't in the same position where I experienced the discrimination and racism, I still had to go back to the same organization in which I experienced the discrimination and racism,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure that I had the necessary tools to go back to deal with certain things that I knew that was going to trigger me.
Yeah.
And so that started the process of the book.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. I guess it's and that's a time to take to be very introspective. I think it's good. I think what you mentioned though is that, getting yourself in that right place, because coming out of a bad situation, and it doesn't matter, there's so many of them, but if we come out of it, throwing yourself right back into it before you have a chance to heal
Right.
and get yourself right with the position, it can even just send you further into those depressions, I'm sure.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have to make sure, and you have to make sure that you do the work. And so I run into so many people who just don't do the work. And we'll just kind of talk about diets, and we were talking about food and stuff. And so,
Yeah.
we see all of these commercials, these diet commercial. And one thing I talk about in the book is like facts are facts. You have to really understand what you're eating. You have to understand labels, and you have to understand marketing and advertising that is on these packages, because their job is to pull you in to spend money into these products. But
Right.
most times when people do that, they start a particular program, and when they start that program, they end up in a situation where they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. They really haven't dealt with the psychological aspect of maybe being overweight, or however it's affecting you, right? Because there's different reasons. And so when you don't deal with the psychological part, I don't care how many diets that you get on, you're going to end up in the same particular place. So you have to
Right.
first reprogram your mind. And once you change your thoughts, then you can change the feelings and the actions and the behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the most difficult part. And that, like myself, I've considered the surgeries over the years for sure. But I've always thought that even the surgery won't help you, but in the short run, if you don't change what you think, because eventually you just go back to your old ways, and then you have a lot more complications. And so that's one reason that, we're striving really hard to change the behaviors where we can live this life from now on. It's not something that's very temporary, or very, has an end date or an expiration. Because the other thing about diets and programs and things like that, I feel, is that there's an end time, and then you have to go back to the real world, to real life. And if you haven't figured out how to handle that, then it's a very short-lived victory for you.
Yeah, it'd be so nice if we can have, all Beyonce is coming. I don't know why, but Beyonce is coming out, right? So she have all of these professional people around her to ensure that she is maintaining. But that's her work, right? That's what she
Right.
gets paid to do. She gets paid to dance, entertain, and to look good.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, we don't have those resources. And so we have to, one, work a full-time job, have to sit here and determine what needs to go into our mouths and into our bellies. Then we got to turn around and we have to cook it. Then when we cook it, we got to hope that it tastes halfway decent.
That's my life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so
boy always says it does,
Yeah.
I must say.
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a trial and error right there. And so for me, one of the things that I did is that I eventually stopped eating because it tastes good. I didn't live to eat. I now, eat because it's just the right thing to do.
Right.
And now I can eat something. It don't necessarily taste good. So I can literally put a bunch of greens into my shake and eat that with no
Yeah.
sweetener, like
Yeah.
none. And I'm okay with that. But it took 3 to 4 years to get to that point.
Oh wow.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. So initially I started out with a bunch of fruit and just one vegetable. Then when I got used to that, I took out a fruit, added another vegetable. Then you learn what vegetables are bitter, which ones are not so bitter, which one are stringy, and you kind of like,
Yeah.
move from there.
Yeah, we've been messing with smoothies, trying to do different smoothies and not put as much sweet stuff in it.
Mhm.
So we're kind of in that learning mode still about tasting good. You know,
But I think,
not much of a kale person.
and I don't know about other people that, have weight issues or eating problems, but I think you hit on what mine is that food is fun. I mean, that's, it's like there was a period in life that, you went out to eat to be with friends, to talk, socialize. But then, and I've shared this example before, but one day Terry was out running around, and I thought she was going to stop at the Chick-fil-A and bring home a spicy chicken sandwich for me. But she called me, when she was almost home, and I said, "Oh, you got some lunch?" And she said, "Yeah, there's salmon and some salad in the fridge." And I'm just telling you, the air just went out of me. The life just was out of me. I was so excited about this Chick-fil-A sandwich, and then the salmon and the salad were awesome. There was nothing wrong with it, but it was just the excitement of it. So anyway, it's funny that I don't know, like I said, other people, but a big part of me is I feel like, well, I'm not having fun if we're not out eating and trying and doing new things.
And that's very true. So most of eating is socialization, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that bring communities, family, neighborhoods together is when we sit down
Yeah.
and make a meal. And oh my God, don't even get me with potlucks. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
right.
I love potlucks.
Love
Yeah.
um, but then there's downside to that. So I want you guys to do this. When you sit down and you eat, I want you to analyze your food, right? I want you to go and research more. I want you to analyze it. And I want you to be able to and get a little post-it or something and identify what I call the feel-good foods. Okay. And so then you identify the not so feel-good foods. And so you're probably going to realize that the feel-good foods are carbs.
Right.
It's the thing that sit on your stomach and you get lazy and you be like, oh, that was so good. And you rub your belly real nice and
Yeah.
yes, and take a
Yeah.
nap. And so those are the things. And the reason they are feel good foods and we get sleepy and take nap because they actually chemically, really reduces that energy within our system that make us.
Okay.
Yeah. And so once we get to that point where we can identify those particular foods, I always tell people just be mindful what you put on your plate. And so, and you can either get the plate and actually label it, feel good food, because we usually say meats, carbs, and vegetables and stuff. No, actually label it and it reminds you, okay, I need to get a small portion of this and a little bit more of that. And you realize you won't get tired as fast, you won't get sleepy, because a lot of the times the carb turns into sugar. It's the sugar that actually either, bring us down or actually increase our energy.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like your point too about you know coming off of stuff gradually. And I think that's a good thing. Like with the feel good is, you may start out with half your plate is that feel good, but if you just kind of narrow that down over time, you can probably kind of wean yourself off of it where you're not so,
Mhm.
I hate to say dependent, but I guess it is. Food and carbs are very addictive. I've heard that they're addictive as a lot of drugs are because they give us that feel good and that they give us that little pick me up that we're all looking for too. Right.
Completely agree. And what you do with things like that, and I always tell people, save the feel good foods for those very stressful times. Like
Yeah.
eat away at it because that, trust me, they come in. There's no way you're going to live on this earth and you are not going to be hit with something unexpected. And I try to do my best to do that. So for Lent, I gave up Reese's peanut butter cups and Pepsi. I love Reese's peanut butter cups and Pepsi, right? Full of carbs.
Yeah.
And so with that said, that's my go-to when I'm feeling some kind of way. I go to Reese's peanut butter cups and
Yeah.
yeah, and a
I thought
Pepsi.
they canceled Lent for this year. Right? COVID, and then 2021, I thought they canceled.
No, you're gonna have to put
No.
your peanut butter cups down too. Yeah, it I guess it's the other that's kind of where patience I think comes in, or where we talk about patience. It's or maybe the gratification that we think we have to, we have to limit that intake of that bad stuff, but we just have to reach deep down inside to get that willpower in order to know that it's the best for us. And sometimes that's difficult as well. It's like, even though we're eating something bad, we know we shouldn't be eating it. We know there's
Yeah.
a healthier choice, but it's just that the willpower to do what we know is right.
Right.
It's
And we have
not
to
healthy.
understand that some of us don't possess that willpower, right? And so then that's when it
Yeah.
comes that we have to make sure we have accountability partners to just make sure they're kind of checking in on us just to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Which kind of comes full circle to the part about having to admit our weaknesses, because a lot of us, we don't want to admit that we need that help or that we have a problem, with that eating or with that specific food. But we have to, at some point, you just have to let all that go and say,
Yeah.
I need that help.
Yeah. And and so sometimes changing the wording to will actually help change your mindset and also change your emotion and change your behavior. And so I no longer use weakness. So I talk about this in the book. So I always tell people to know your strength and your weaknesses, right? But and to kind of speed that up. And I then start exploring what weakness is. And so oftentimes society has actually condition us to believe like you're less than or you're not good enough. So if we can kind of change weakness to mean an opportunity, I think we can look at
Okay.
things a little bit differently, right? So no,
Yeah.
this is my strength and these are the opportunities. And to me, a weakness is nothing but an opportunity that you are in a process of trying to master. And that's part
Yeah.
of your self-discovery, right? You continue
Yeah.
to work on this particular thing. That opportunity is there. If you live in and you breathing and you can move,
Yeah.
that's an opportunity to change,
Right.
right?
That's awesome.
That is
Yeah.
really good. I like that.
Yeah, because we could take, instead of it, I'm wanting a pizza, and so instead of taking that as a failure that
Yeah.
I'm going to eat a pizza, I could take it as an opportunity that I can
Eat something else.
eat something healthy and get
Yeah.
those carbs right.
Eat that ground turkey
Mhm.
and
And it goes back to what you said with your pastor. He said, yeah, we have these thoughts, but we still have the decision, right? So it gives you that authority. And that's what we have to understand. We have to start learning to walk with and speak with authority, because I don't think we do that enough. And yeah, you may fall off the bike when you try to do that, but guess what? Tomorrow's another day and you can try it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another big thing is I came off the tracks yesterday and did it. And so like for me, you kind of break that momentum, and then it's easier to mess up tomorrow instead of, control alt delete,
Mhm.
get it out of your mind. We, had a situation yesterday, whatever that was, but today is going to be different, and you got to come out fighting again.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. It's never too late. I preach that all the time. It's never too late. I remember watching the episode, Oprah's Master Class, and she had Morgan Freeman on there, and he kind of explaining how he became an actor in his 50s.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Isn't
Yep.
that crazy?
I read that not long ago that he was in his 50s before he even started, which is crazy.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
was like, look, I just turned 47 and I've been beating up, I'm gonna be honest, I dyed my beard just for you all. Had to hide
Thanks.
my gray. I
I
did.
was gonna say it looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. But when we're changing and we meeting these, I call it aging milestone, it doesn't feel good. It's like you almost
Yeah.
losing control of who you used to be. And
Right.
that's a very difficult process. And so when I saw that with Morgan Freeman, I was like, he landed his first star role in his 50s with driving Miss Daisy. You
Yeah.
know what? It just motivated me to keep going.
Yeah.
I did. I actually watched that the other day, and
Yeah.
such a good movie. I could go on. Anyway,
Mhm.
so you said Beyonce and Morgan Freeman. I'm there. I Beyonce. Oh, I'm part of the Beehive.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at my
Sorry.
beard, thinking I probably should have put a little Grecian on it. But yeah, and that, aging is a whole big part of this too. I think it's well, in our younger years, it was easier to transition to, go out and lose a few pounds, or, we're more active, where it seems like, especially with the COVID and everything we've been going through, we're just not out and about as much. And, thank goodness the cold weather seems to be behind us. So we're hoping to,
Oh,
be able to get out and walk around the neighborhood a little bit more. But,
Yeah.
that, and I know we've, we have guests on that. I realize that there's a separation between, we can't always exercise our way to losing weight and being slim. It's, 80% of it's what we put in. But what I can tell you for myself is that if I'm out being walking and exercising and being healthy, it is so much easier for me to eat right just
Mm,
because I feel better about myself. Where,
mhm.
when you're kind of locked in the house on a winter day and you're watching some TV, that's when all the all those foods that we shouldn't be eating, that's when they're all the very best.
Well, I'm going to give you something to try. Okay, I did this with one of
Okay.
my. I don't know if I told you I am an intern clinician, so I'm in the process of getting my clinical license. But one of the things that I
Okay.
encourage one of my patients, because she have her favorite show. So, what's your favorite show, Roy?
Oh my
I like
gosh.
the closer
Yeah, the
over and over
closer.
and over.
The closer. All right. So when
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are looking
yeah.
at the closer, there's no reason when you're looking at it, because you're gonna look at that every week, right? I'm assuming it comes on
Yeah.
every week. You get down, you get you a mat, and you start doing leg lifts, or you start
Okay.
doing crunches. And and you can just move your legs while you're actually looking at it. And then when the commercial time comes, the commercials are usually 3 to 4 minutes. Then you can get up and you can do some jumping jacks, or you can do some squats, or you can do something. So those are times that you can, one, have that intimate moment with the closer, but two, also have that intimate moment with
Interesting. Yeah.
yourself.
That's a
So
good
that's
idea.
something that I encourage people. There's no reason to look at your
Okay.
favorite shows and sit down and eat
Yeah.
chips.
That's what I was just gonna say. I was gonna say when I'm doing leg lifts, it's gonna make it hard to eat
Yeah,
chips. But
where's the
uh,
chips?
no, but that's an excellent idea, and I'm guilty as anybody of not thinking, not taking those little opportunities that we don't have to do a lot of strenuous something, crazy. But just like you said, just getting down in the floor, just moving around and
Yep.
stretching. That's something else that we've talked about quite a bit. But I just feel extremely tight, and that's one thing that I
Yeah.
feel would help me a lot better, a lot more, is just to stretch. And uh, I'd been over the other day doing something, and I like to threw my back out just because I was so tight that.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, I just always feel like I do better, when I'm in that physical moment and doing really good. You don't want to come home and eat. I guess because the endorphins that are released through the exercise
Mhm.
probably are some of the ones that you get from whatever you're eating as well.
Yeah. And that's real good. And that is a awesome topic, or a mentionable that you just stated,
Mhm.
is stretching. So that's something I just recently got into, and
Okay.
I'm learning that we should stretch more as we become older. Just because the way that the body works, things become really tight. We don't exercise as much. And so if you can, all of us, I encourage you, if you're 40 years or older, to really just get into yoga, and stretching, because it will extend your life expectancy big time.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's actually a shop that's opened up here close to us. We went and tried it. It's a place that they stretch you out, and they have like I guess it's a little bit different than a massage table, but kind of like an exam table. But
Mhm.
they stretch your legs, your back, your arms, and it's amazing how, yeah, I was a little sore, but it really felt good just to get
Oh yeah.
stretched out.
Yeah. And another couple of things I just want to mention. So for men, I always encourage men over the age of, I would say 40 as well, to get your testosterone levels checked. Study shows that our testosterone levels peak at 25.
Oh
And so
wow.
when we see a decrease in our testosterone, it's easier for us to pick up fat. Our fat
Okay.
increases tremendously. So a lot of times, and a lot of the stuff happens. ED, erectile dysfunction, happens. Tired, being tired, and or sad. Just a lot of stuff kind of happens because our body is transitioning. And for women, I always and just encourage women, probably the age of 40, just to make sure that they are doing any type, like strength training. Just make sure they're doing strength training and light light weightlifting, and I say that for light weightlifting because women shed, right? So you all have your menstrual cycles and things like that, and when you shed, and because you've been shedding so much, your bones get more brittle as you age. And so
Okay.
that's why a
Right.
lot of older women deals with osteoporosis than
Yeah.
men. So they deal with the bone issue. So just make sure that you are doing something that that is weight bearing and building a muscle, because we know that women muscles are a little bit harder to develop in men because of the testosterone and the estrogen levels.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have off and on for the last couple of years taken calcium, but I've been taking it pretty pretty good for a few months now. Daily. I had checked up, and of course that's one of the things that the
Mhm.
doctor was talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I've got aches and pains. And if I don't get out and walk, I don't much like to go to the gym other than to use to walk there. But I do love to walk around where we live. And if I don't get out and do that, I can so tell a difference.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the calcium definitely has been helping as far as some of my aches and pains,
Yeah.
ones that can be helped.
Something that's been kind of on my mind too the last few days is we were looking up some questions that people ask all the time, and one's what is considered a low carb diet. And so we kind of talked a little bit about it, but I think it's important to mention that when we veer off or when we make changes, the first thing we always say is we're not doctors, so always seek out
Yeah.
a medical professional, registered
So,
dietitian, or nutritionist. But people, I think there's a domino effect that when you cut something or increase something, it changes the macro and micronutrients that you
yes.
receive. And, it's important. We always recommend getting an app or marking it down, however you can track it. But,
Mhm.
they got some apps that are good because that way you can see that you can actually be doing more harm to yourself. You may be losing weight like you want, but there are things that you could be messing up in that
Right.
process. So it's always uh, I think it's always advisable just to watch those nutrients to make sure you're getting as much of everything. And I
Mhm.
think iron is another one for women that they have an issue with where men don't. And like my doctor said, be careful of iron because you can do too much of it for the men. And so again, it just we just have to be very careful about tweaking all this stuff, and not I think moderation is probably the key word for anything that we want to try to do.
Yeah, it goes back to pacing your strides, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
Like it's a pace. Always, get your annuals. Your annual is going
yeah,
to give you your lab works, and the doctor is going to pretty much give you recommendations of where you need to go. So I completely understand what you're
yeah,
saying about that. In my opinion, and it's just an opinion, I always, when people are struggling with carbs, I encourage them to kind of wean off of carbs and increase the fats, right? So the
yeah,
carbs have the sugar that's processing in your system, and the fat necessarily don't. So you have your avocados, you have your olive oils and things in that. Well,
yeah,
we've always been taught that carbs give you energy. Well, fat does too.
yeah,
But
right.
nobody never talked about fat when we were growing up, right?
Right. And there's been some anecdotal evidence. And anyway, yeah, well, there's been some evidence, we'll say that. There's been some evidence that you can look at the increase in Alzheimer's and trace that back to the beginning of our low fat fad that we had in the late 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. It's funny you said that. I just wrote a whole blog on how fats actually help with Alzheimer's. So if you have a
yeah,
healthy fat content, and understand the difference between saturated and unsaturated because they are two completely two different things. So I don't want
right.
anyone just looking at it as just fats. But if you go out there and you get the healthy fats, they can definitely help with the connection, the brain connection, and you can decrease your chances of experiencing dementia and Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So anyway, I just always like to put that out there is that,
Mhm.
making these subtle changes, but it can be good, but we just don't want to be, we just don't want to go crazy because so many people are like, well, I think it gets back to patience. Is like so many people are like, all right, I'm cutting all of my carbs out. I'm not ever eating another one. And, they expect that they've been putting weight on for 10 years. And it's like, well, they cut carbs out yesterday and then they're looking at you today like, well, why haven't I lost all that weight that I put on, over the last 10 years?
Yeah. It's always healthy to create that baseline. So the baseline will be when you go to the doctor and they say, hey, you don't got a thyroid issue. You know what I'm saying? You don't have hypertension. You don't have high cholesterol, because you need to know all of that information before you start implementing any kind of diet. I'm real good about going to my physicians, twice a year. And that's just for me.
Yeah.
And that insurance don't always pay for it, but sometimes I pay out of pocket. But you have to understand where you're going, and you need someone or a professional or expert to monitor you while you're making these subtle changes. Because like you said, if you throw something out of whack and you all of a sudden you feeling sad or you're depressed and you're chemically imbalanced, it's just gonna you're gonna start all over again.
And if you're on medication also, I mean, there's so many factors that have to be weighed out before you make changes.
Yeah. Look, it's almost 5 o'clock. The dogs are going off. They're like alarms when it's time for them to eat. I was just going to speak to your, the carbs, about you saying coming off those gradually, because I got it's a comical story, but it's been about 3 or 4 years ago when my doctor diagnosed me with type 2 diabetes. And he said, look, I want you to get your carbs down, try to stay between 40 and 60 a day. And I'm like, okay. So that was on like a Wednesday or Thursday. And so Friday and Saturday, as I'm working around the house, I start feeling terrible. I mean, like I felt like right at the top of my head was fixing to blow off. And I thought I was having some kind of a high blood pressure event. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm fixing to have a stroke and dying, so I just my goal was just to live through the weekend and, get back to see this guy. So I called him up Monday. I'm like, I've got to come see you. He's like, you're just here Thursday. What's up? I said, well, so I feel like I'm having a stroke or something. My head's fixing to blow off. And he started laughing. He's like, have you been holding your carbs down? And I said, yeah, I've been trying to keep between 40 and 60. He said, yeah, you're just having carb withdrawals. He said, he said, carbs are so addictive. He said, it's just like a drug that, you come off of it. He said, you're going to feel bad for 3 or 4 days or maybe even a week. But he said, stick with it and you'll get yourself through it. So I always laugh about that, we don't realize how addicting. And like you said earlier, these companies formulate foods in order to sell more of them. And so sometimes the things that we eat, that's something when you start looking at carbs, you will find that they are hidden everywhere.
Yes.
And you really have to check
the devil. I call them the devil's minions. That's what I call them, the devil's minions. And because they are hidden, like, there's carbs in fruit, there's carbs in vegetables. Like when you really sit down and I talk about this in the book, the facts of facts, you sit down and read, you'll be like, oh my God, I did not know that they had that sugar count or that carb count, but they are every single way. You can't get away from them.
Yeah. Oh, a banana has like 20 carbs in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's good to say too, is like the banana, instead of eating a whole one, we've just kind of cut back to where we can eat a quarter or a half at a time. And that's what sometimes I feel like I have the all or nothing mentality. It's like, well, that whole banana is bad, so we just can't eat any of it. That's not true. Maybe we don't need the whole thing. Let's just portion out to take a piece that we need from it.
Don't do it. It's you setting yourself up to fail. When you do that, when you try to remove it, because you don't even realize how much your body actually yearns and depend on it until you completely remove it, and then you're just walking around and you bugging out and you snapping on everybody like, what is wrong with me today? But dude, you stop eating the banana. No.
Right.
You're just conditioned to do it because that's what you've been doing. That's how you've been doing it.
Yeah.
Well, DB, thank you so much for your time. I know you've been very generous and stayed with us a little longer, but we appreciate it. It's a great conversation. So before we let you go, a couple questions. First off is, what is a tool or a habit, or what's something that you do every day in your daily life that you feel adds a lot of value?
One of the things that I do, and you might find it a little crazy, but I literally get on Facebook and I go into my messenger and I usually send random good mornings and I love you or hellos. You'll be surprised how many people go throughout the day with no one saying I love you. And so, since I am a product of love and I also see myself as a universal servant, I extend love. And so I randomly go on Facebook and I just say good morning or hey or I love you. Have anybody said that I love you? And I get the weirdest responses. They be like, huh? What? Okay. Where that come
Yeah,
from?
yeah.
It's foreign to them.
That's
Oh,
awesome. I
that
love
is
that.
really cool. I do too. I love that.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, we just certainly never know where people are in the journey, and sometimes that well-placed "Good morning" or "I love you" can really do a lot to brighten up people's day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that. Let's all
Yeah.
Me
start.
too.
We all
And
need
I
to
say
practice
this,
that more.
believe it or not, I stopped 3 people from committing suicide, attempting
Oh my
suicide by
gosh,
doing that. Yeah.
You are kidding
that's
me.
awesome.
Yeah. Hmm.
You
All
are
right.
a bomb.
Well,
Oh
let's
my
make a
gosh.
commitment this week. We'll send out more of those
Yeah.
messages like that and see if we can. That would be a good trend to pick up on.
Spread love
I think
and
so.
kindness.
Yeah, yeah. All right, DB. Well, thanks a lot. So tell everybody, of course, how can they reach out and tell us about the book, how they can reach out and get a hold of you.
Awesome. So I'm on every social media platform, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Loves, Loves Pursuit, Pursuit, ATL short for Atlanta. So Loves Pursuit, ATL. You can find out a lot of different things that I'm doing because I am doing a lot. I'm in the community all the time. In addition to that, Loves Pursuit, ATL.net is where you can purchase my book. The book actually will be launched on March the 17th. So next
Okay.
week, Wednesday, the
Oh,
book
Next
will
week.
be,
All right.
yeah, active and live. And the
very
goal is to,
good.
I'm on this campaign trying to encourage everybody like, hey, I'm trying to become a
Yeah.
bestseller.
Yeah.
So I've been on that campaign there. So those are the two, well, all the places in which you can reach me.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate that. Y'all reach out, pick up a copy, get on your social media this week, and let's spread a little love and a little happiness and joy where we can. We never know who needs that in our life. So
Well,
Absolutely.
congratulations on the book.
yeah,
It sounds
congratulations.
awesome.
And also,
Thank
we'll
you.
say that you are finishing up your dissertation. So we wish you well with getting that taken care of.
Yes. Yes.
We want
Thank
to
you so
we
much.
want to remove we want to remove that label that we talked about prior to that. We want to remove the ABD after your
ABD.
name there.
There you
Change that acronym to something else.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Feeding Fatty. This is Roy.
Mister.
So you can always find us at www.feedingfatty.com. We're on all the major social media platforms, and we are also on all the major podcast platforms: iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to, reach out. We'll be sure and get you added. Also, a copy or a video of this interview will go up on YouTube when we release as well. So until next time, take care of yourself.